my Area 51 line. You're on the air. Hello.
Welcome to the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, where what you've known as reality will be shattered by the truth. Krista and Brandy will lift the veil from your eyes, revealing what has either been hidden or denied you for eons.
Hey, hey, hey.
Howdy.
How you doing?
You know what? I'm doing pretty good. My daughter has made it through the tornadoes down in East Texas, and so everything's good. Sounds like Brandy's making it through okay. She's got snacks. So,
Yep, that's all that's important, right?
Right.
That's funny. That's too funny. I'm trying to bring this show up on my phone. My phone's being stupid, won't let me. So anyway, hello everybody, and happy Friday. It's finally here, and I'm glad it's here. It's been a long week because half my week I traveled, and the other half I worked. So, are you recuperated yet from last weekend, Tex?
I am.
Are you sure about that?
I've got my voice back.
Your singing voice?
Yeah. Well, Monday I was doing the show, and about halfway through, it just like quit on me. I was like, good grief.
That's funny. Just because you used it all Saturday night.
I did.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, we went to the after party for the Kling Brothers Conference, the Lone Star Paracon, and Tex got to sing in a whole lot. What did you sing with Monica?
That was Dwight Yoakam's Faster Than You.
That's right. And then you sang Grease something with somebody.
Yeah, that one took me off guard. That one, I was like,
it was from the Grease movie. Yeah, that was. I got it on video though, so I have blackmail.
Yeah, you do.
I'll send it. I'll be sure to send it to you though.
See, the thing about it is, though, you got blackmail for the people that were with me because I don't care.
That's true. That was fun though. It was a good time. We all had a good time, and I would say you take home the one for drinking the most though.
Yeah, I killed a bottle of whiskey by myself that night.
You sure did.
I don't do that very often, but it did.
2 nights in a row though, Tex. That's what you're not telling everybody. You did 2 nights in a row. You did Friday night too.
I did.
So Mickey G asked, she says, can we see it at the conference? Sure. I'm glad to show you Tex singing at the conference. So
you'll probably see it live at the conference.
Right. Well, we're kind of looking into that. I do have some people out looking to see if we can do some karaoke that Thursday night. So,
and I meant to talk to you about that the other night. So remind me when we get off the show. I've got a lead on that.
Okay, cool. Sounds like a plan. So, welcome everybody. Appreciate everybody tuning in tonight, and we have an interesting show tonight. We're going to talk about Missouri State Penitentiary. You know the word MSP.
I'm rubbing off on you.
Right? That's a hard word to say, just saying. But anyway, we're going to talk about the ghost there from somebody who was incarcerated there. Yes. And then he's also had some UFO experiences too. So we're going to talk about some of that too. So anyway, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to bring them up.
Good.
Hello. How's it going?
Right. Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Everything good?
Everything's good. Appreciate you coming on tonight for us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually, our team has an event we're going to be doing at MSP. I think it's in June or July or something. So it's just kind of going to be kind of interesting to hear your take on it and, where we need to be that night and what buildings or whatever. So,
well, the ones that are remaining, I'll tell you about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So without, I mean, obviously, we don't care what you did or didn't do, whatever, it's over with. So we're not here to judge. Our chat is really good. We just want to hear what happened there while you were there, because it's such a haunted place, and they say it's the bloodiest 47 acres.
West of the Mississippi.
Yep. So there was a big riot there back in the day, and so when you went there, did you know it was haunted, or did you believe in any of that stuff?
You just know it's because of the age of the place and the atmosphere. I'm not one to look for ghosts, and right. I'm not one to look for UFOs. These things just happen. Okay, they're just occurrences. I'm not afraid of it, and interested in it though, for sure.
Right, absolutely.
But the place has its own spirit. There's no doubt.
Yeah. So it was actually in operation from 1836 to 2004 when it closed down.
September 14th, 2004.
Yeah, long time. It was in operation for. So
yeah, what they claim is during all that time there was only 7 bodies that were unclaimed. But and they buried him at the pauper's grave. Mm-hmm. What's really interesting is that even during the Civil War, they had people in there 20 deep per cell, and you can't tell me that all those years there's only 7 people were in unmarked pauper graves on the premises. They moved it in the 40s or the 50s. Okay, right. But there's all sorts of stuff. An example was when we moved out of the penitentiary, mm-hmm. And we went to the new JCCC. The guards came in shortly thereafter, and they were down on the lower field where the baseball field was, and they were down there with bulldozers clearing off the baseball field for a parking lot. Well, if I was you, I'd start in the parking lot, because mm-hmm. the next day the guards coming and telling us that they're finding bones all over the place.
Oh, wow.
And that place was covered over within 2 days. Within 2 days, it was sealed. They went in there and covered it all over.
So they covered it, or did they remove graves or anything? Do you know? Or
what the guards told me was that they went in there and they paved it. So
they paved it.
Yeah, they turned it into a parking lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, that's why I'm saying that down there along the parking lot, and the death house is close to the parking lot. So, mm-hmm. That'd be an interesting place to start. There's one ghost called Fast Jack. And Fast Jack is a white blur, and they mm-hmm. had a long hallway, 75 to 100 yards long, mm-hmm. From housing unit 5 to housing unit 2, and I came through there one time. I worked hospice. I came through one time, and I caught a white blur. By the time I looked, it was at the very end of the hallway, taking a left.
Oh, wow.
That was called Fast Jack. Well, Fast Jack has been seen on the baseball fields, and he's been seen on the hill down there. So, I believe he's probably one of those fellows who's underneath the parking lot.
Could very well be.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, he's well known.
Yeah.
Which makes himself doesn't. I don't know if he could slow down or not, but he's been seen many times.
So while you were in there, did like all the inmates, they just knew that place was haunted? And is that something y'all talked about, or was it like, how was it like with the ghost wise? And
well, again, with people will accept whatever, or reject whatever they will. Mm-hmm. People who are incarcerated tend to not show any vulnerability. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if they're scared of ghosts, they're not going to say they're scared of ghosts. If they're not, you know what I'm saying? So sure. the people in there were just like out here, if mm-hmm. you know what I'm saying. A lot of people saw things. A lot of people didn't see things.
Right.
Yeah, we had one guy who was always into white noise. And he'd be hearing all sorts of stuff. And if you sat down with the guy and literally just sat with him instead of making fun of him, and man, you're right. You do hear those, you do hear those things, So
mm-hmm. Right. That's crazy. What other kind of things did you hear or witness yourself there?
Oh, Here's a story about I worked hospice. This doesn't really necessarily say I was a ghost, but it was. We had a guy who was in hospice, and he had his own room, and he had a brain tumor, but he was fairly healthy. He still had 6 months to live at least, and so you have to go back to the housing unit to count, make sure everybody's in the prison. Well, I'm leaving, and he got my attention, and I walked into his room, and he looked over my left shoulder, and he pointed up and said, "Hey, Paul, why are there roses around Mary's feet?" And I said, "Well, because she's a woman of honor, I guess." I suppose, "Look, I'll be back in 15 minutes. Just have to go count, and I'll be back." 15 minutes later, I come back, take the elevator up to the 3rd floor, walk down the hallway, and a nurse is just closing this door. And I go walking up. She says, "Paul, I'm sorry, but Ed passed away." I said, "Oh, no, you're kidding. How that?" She said, "Well, it just happened." I said, So
Wow.
she said, "But since you're here, you had to go in and take all their property and stuff so nobody would steal it. Okay, put away." So while his body was in there, I walked into the room, and the room smelled like roses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the room was filled up with roses. It was she didn't spray anything or nothing. It was kind of a crazy moment. So yeah.
So the picture of Mary. So there was a picture of Mary.
No,
but no
picture. He was seeing something that I couldn't see. I looked behind him, nothing there. He was
Oh,
seeing something that I couldn't see.
wow. That's interesting. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I mean, at least it kind of sounds like he went in the right direction.
Well, what's good about it, and you analyze these things. What's good about it, and I've seen other people who have different beliefs say similar things about their belief. I believe that at that moment, you're given a comfort thing. I think that was his. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so.
I think that's really cool, though. Honestly, that because to me, that's not scary. That's nothing scary.
Oh no! As a matter of fact, when I passed that on to the Catholic community, women were crying and stuff. So it was, I ran the chapel for, I don't know, at the new JCCC, and so that was shortly before that turnover. So I shared that when I got to the new JCCC, and they were really, you know how people would get affected by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about it is, if you got, stories like that are very inspirational. It's more of a testimonial than anything, and a lot of times that will make a difference in somebody's life.
Sure.
And,
That's right. Yeah, they have to just reinforce their own beliefs.
Right. So I was wondering, and when did you first? How long were you in before you had your first experience there?
I would say it was the first year.
Oh, wow.
Within the first year.
Wow.
I worked for, and you're going to hear me say it, I worked for several times because there's many jobs that you have in prison.
Right.
I usually worked 2 jobs. I had a volunteer job, and I worked a regular job and a volunteer job. So if you think I'm making up stories, it's not. I've worked probably 20 different jobs while I was in prison. So
No, we believe you.
This job here involved going down to the death house, and it was leaking, and water was coming down the stack.
So what is the death house?
The gas house, the gas chamber.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, there's 2 seats, there's crock pots, there's a mirror right here that when you're sitting in the chair, the only thing you see is your face and the people in the rooms behind you. You'll see when you get there. It's well. Anyways, I was in there working industrial maintenance, and so me and a guy named Bill DaCosta, who was a civilian supervisor, we go into the death house to see what the damage is and how to repair it. So we go walking on in. Now you walk into the death chamber. So it's an old submarine door that you turn a knob and the door slams open.
Right.
We're in there, and there's a room here and windows. There's a room here and windows. You just came from the room here in this room. So there's 4 different accesses. Like say the victims people would be in one room, and the governor would be in the next room, and then your people would be here, and the guy who's going to die is in this room. Okay, So there's 4 different rooms. Well, there's only one way in that place is through that one door. Okay. Well, Bill DeCosta and I were in there and looking at it. It was, the place felt kind of weird, but I mean, because it's the death house that killed 40 people in the place, you know. And I'm talking with Bill, and all of a sudden this growl came out of nowhere. Nobody in that room, our room, or that room. And this thing growled. I mean, growled. And well, Bill was, I was 190 pounds at the time, and Bill was, heck, he was my size, he's 350. Bill beat me out that door. he took off. It was a growl. Huh?
It was a growl you heard.
A growl, yeah, something growled. Don't know what it was. However, that growling thing is also recurring down in the hold at MSP. A lot of people will hear the growling, and that growling. There's a lady and a couple who had killed a child back in the 50s, and they were put to death side by side in the death chamber.
Oh wow!
And when that happened, all of a sudden the whole at MSP started getting haunted, and they still believe that to this day they still believe it's those two that are, but their signature is that growl.
Really?
Yeah, and I've heard guys talk about the growling. I've seen when I first came down to prison, you had the old guards. New guards are just people. Okay, the old guards were rough, redneck, just tough nail bone. You know, they spit out nails just to have. I mean, these guys are tough, and yet scared to go down the hole.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, those. The EVPs and the disembodied voices that you get that are growls, they're a little unnerving.
Okay, I didn't know you had but there. I didn't know you had them. I'm just saying what I experienced.
Oh yeah, I was out in the field, and I was getting my truck. I was getting my stuff ready to go out to the cemetery, and yeah, it was about 5 minutes worth on audio. Something growling at me while I'm getting my stuff out of my truck, and I never heard it.
Right.
I never heard it till I played it back on the tape.
That goes back to that white noise thing where this guy was hearing stuff, and you just, oh yeah, I catch it. You know, yeah. Yeah. Another one was I was in cell 23 in A Hall, which is also called Four House. This is probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest building on the premises. And on one side is 4 stories of cells, 30 deep. And on the other side is four floors of cell, 30 deep. And the flat part downstairs is called the flag because it's shaped like a flag. Okay? In the middle of there is a shower that went down to the basement where you took a shower. Well, I'm right there at that shower over here in cell 23. I'm in there with Norman Wickheiser, who was a really good friend, good people. And we're sitting down about 12 o'clock, 12:30. It's nighttime. Watching TV. Now you're lying down and you're facing the entrance to the room. The room has an archway just like this, the door, but it has a sliding bars instead of a door. So it's like a gate, and you have to lock yourself in and all sorts of stuff. But we're sitting there, and so I'm watching my TV, and my bunk's right at the end of the bed here. Norman's doing the same thing. And something walks by that's got black and white stripes on it. It's 6 foot tall, and it had black. Yeah, because I wasn't looking, I caught it out of the corner of my eye. I said, "Hey, Norman, you see that?" He said, "Yeah, what was that?" I said, I got up and looked, and you could look between the bars, the door and the wall this way. There was only like 5 more cells down that way. There was nobody there, man. There's no. This thing was wearing they're called pot hats, just shaped like a pot. And no brim, no nothing, a pot hat. And it had 3-inch black and white stripes. I didn't know anything about it, but it had a dude named Jose across the hallway who's been there in prison for 40 years. And I talked to him the next day. He says, "Oh yeah, that's." He told me the guy's name, or a group of guys that. Well, they're from the 30s, and they were black guys who were the story, many different stories, but yeah. That's supposed to be the disembodied spirit of one of the guys that accidentally died. So,
I love that, accidentally died.
That's still happening, believe it or not.
Oh yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think
so,
the term for it now is you got Epstein.
so that's there is no guidelines to what you see. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean you literally, I don't control anything. I didn't control it. Guys who told me stories. When I was at J Trip after MSP, I was kind of into the thing. So being interested in UFOs, especially, but so what I did was I made a 100 question questionnaire. Now I'm running the chapel. Okay, so in this questionnaire, it covers. Have you ever seen a UFO? Have you ever experienced paranormal things? Just 100 different questions that could be for my own study.
Right.
I had actually 106 questions because there's always going to be somebody who's going to say yes to everything, and there's always going to say no to everything for whatever reason. So I took the top 3 from both sides out of it. Okay, so we ended up with 100 fairly clear. Out of all of them, nobody said that they've never seen something. These are different religions. These are Native Americans. These are Muslims. These are Catholic. These are Wiccans. These are, all Jewish. All the religions, and I gave 1/4 to them. Everybody but a couple, and I took them off the top list and the bottom list. Everybody saw something, experienced something.
Interesting.
So that was that's kind of validates. You question things sometimes.
So I have a quick question. So when you were at MSP, besides the inmates, did you ever hear of like guards or workers talking about the paranormal there?
Oh yeah, but I think that it's a common, if one guy hears it, there's things moved and just odd stuff. There's that back in. And I want to say it was the late 70s, early 80s. They literally saw people go through the wall. They were saying that somebody escaped. The guards were talking about that. And nobody escaped. So they were literally saw somebody go through the wall. Kind of. So that's one of the many stories. But
yeah,
I would be I would put the alarm out if I was up in the towers looking at it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, was that the only time that y'all saw that thing or that entity walk past your cell, or was that kind of a regular thing?
No, that was a regular guy. They knew about him. Yeah, they knew about him.
You saw him you saw that quite often.
Well, I saw him the one time.
Oh, okay, I got you.
I saw him the one time. However, he was seen a lot. He was known a lot. Like I said, I went over to talk to Jose. Jose's been there for you, and he just nonchalantly talked about it. So, his cellie, can't even remember. I guess his name was Sarge. I can't really remember what his name was now. But his cellie woke up one time and the thing was in his room. So he was standing there in a room. And you don't stand, especially that era. Nowadays it's different, but in that era, you don't go in a man's cell. Period. I don't care what you don't. So first thing you do is you grab your locks and sock or whatever you're protecting yourself with.
Right.
And Charge jumped up fighting this thing that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
So it goes on. I mean, I'm trying to remember all these things. I've never tried to memorize them all. So, but as I'm speaking, they're coming back, a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you were there and the paranormal was around, I mean, what was going through your mind? I know you said, you couldn't be vulnerable. I understand that, but like to yourself, like, were you scared? Did it kind of freak you out? Or did you want to, like, what was that?
I thought, I didn't want to, I've already experienced, nothing worse could have happened than what happened when I went through to get there. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing that, you're already toughen yourself up for whatever's coming down.
Right.
mentally prepared. So when they see something like that, fortunately Norman was there with me, so I had someone to talk to about it. It wasn't just me. Or Bill was with me when I was down there at the death house. That didn't bother, because Bill was there. He saw it.
Sure. Yep.
The thing again, the nurse was there. The nurse said she didn't spray anything. So, it is what it is. I was not scared. I've never. Now I got to say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
They opened up the basement one time to H Hall or A Hall 4 house,
Mm-hmm.
and go downstairs and you'll be down there. To the left, there's a door. And behind that door, and take another left, there's half cells. They're got flat metal bars, and they're the cells are, you can't stand up in them. Okay. And those were used for the hold.
Right.
Back when the building was done. They were torture chambers. Okay. And when I say torture chambers, that's all it can be. Okay, right. You can't show somebody in there and not expect it not to torture them. So, but I was back there. They opened it up one time, and I went back there in maintenance, and there was, can't remember how many cells there were back there, but it was the most eeriest, depressing, and I can't say evil. It's more like
dark.
Yeah, dark. It wasn't evil. It was just bitter despair.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
makes sense.
That bothered me because that didn't come from. That obviously came from somebody that was back there.
Sure. That
bothered me.
Well, that's a lot of energy. That had to be a lot of energy down there. I mean, a lot of pain, a lot of,
There's
that imprints itself,
Right.
So, there's one spot now. I wasn't there when it happened, but in between 2 and 3 house, it was only like 50, 60, 70 feet apart. Okay. Right. A bulldozer had gone in there to clean it off. When the bulldozer went there, and these buildings were probably built way after 1880s. I don't know when they were built, but the bulldozer went back there and it fell into the ground. When they got the bulldozer out, they literally found a torture chamber of shackles on the walls and stuff, and they quickly filled it up with concrete and sealed it off. So that's another one of those seal off, hide type.
Right.
Just like the parking lot.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's really pretty crazy. I have a question here to ask you. A friend of ours, Jay, with Critique Podcast, asked, he said, if there's time, ask about Gil McDonald, an ex-guard that claims there's aliens at MSP. Do you know anything about that?
If they are, they were the guards. It's hard to say. I know, but
anything's possible, right?
Those things are possible. It depends. I mean, some things are seen, some things aren't seen. I've got things that happened in my life that weren't seen, and yet they're there. It's physical evidence. Right.
Right.
Right. As part of the UFO. I mean, I'm not. I'm just very aware of my environment, I guess.
So let's talk about your UFO encounters, because I think the reason, like, maybe, and we can talk more about it after you talk about your UFO stuff, but like the reason why, like, you saw these ghosts, maybe you were open to it because of what had happened to you with the UFO, and people listening, you guys will understand once he kind of talks about it a little bit. So do you want to start from the beginning and
okay, I can start when I was
what you told me.
Okay, well, I was basically 7 years old, maybe 8. I was brought up in a quarter horse ranch upstate New York, middle couple of houses, mountain ranges, in a place called Pleasant Valley. Okay, so it doesn't get any more country than that. And I had 2 dogs I ran with. They were my friends, my partners, and that's what it was. Well, we would run down to the creek, cross the creek over, and there's a field on the other side that we'd romp. And so I crossed over, and I'm in that field, and I look up and there's an airplane in the sky, but it's not moving. It's like that's why isn't it moving? And all of a sudden, and I don't know how much time had passed, but I woke up and I was unclothed. I'm lying in the field. There's a sock on top of a pair of pants. On top of it, I had a pocket knife and I had a Timex watch. And I picked up woke up and I'm getting dressed with what's going on. My dogs are on the other side of the creek barking. And I reached out for my stuff and I couldn't hold that Timex watch. The Timex watch was smoking hot. I mean, it didn't burn, it just burnt. So and I looked back up and the airplane was there, but now it's not an airplane. And it takes off. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't the red and white airplane I originally saw. Okay. My dogs are howling like crazy on the other side of the creek. So I come tearing off, hollering Sable and Badger. That was their names. And they're just she was like a mother to me, and I was like her puppy, and I get about halfway across the street and she comes on and we ran all the way back to the house. After that, I felt something weird in the spot that you can't touch it. It just felt like it was and I never had pimples when I was 8, but that's what it eventually felt like. It felt like and I didn't think much about that. And then shortly after that, my parents had gotten divorced and things had switched around. I moved to Germany for a couple of years and I came back and went down to Poughkeepsie, New York, and that's where a lot of the UFO things, ghost things started. The very first one that happened was in between my neighborhood, which is Spattenkill, and right next door is another neighborhood. There's about a 20-acre lot where guys used to ride their dirt bikes and stuff like that. But these are fully developed IBM developments, top of the line, multi-million-dollar homes. Okay. So I'm going up the trail that I walked 1,000 times before, 100 anyways. And I look over to Shelly's house, and Shelly's house was probably 100, 150 feet away. She had 2 spotlights on her garage facing me as I'm walking up this hill. So you could see clearly from where I was all the way to Shelly's house. Okay, there was a little brush, but wasn't much. Get up on top of the hill, and I hear a footfall next to me. And I was like, and I thought, well, maybe I stepped on a branch or, nothing. I took another step. I started running. This thing ran with me, and then it touched my back. There was nothing there. Okay, it touched my back, but touched the back, the same spot that that I had felt as a child. But now, then I feel it right now. I feel it to this day.
Wow.
Even though later on in life, and I'll tell you that at the end. So in high school, there was many times where that glow in the dark type frisbee color was one was submerged, and back then they never talked about submerged UFOs. But there was one in the Hudson River, and it's 12, 16 feet in circle, green light shining up out of the river. And we're down there at Sand Docks having a party. Everybody who was 14 to 28 who had a motorcycle was down there. And we're looking at this thing. We're up on the cliffs, but it slowly went down to the sand dock or the river bank. And this thing's coming towards us, coming toward. Well, everybody's getting scared as girls are running, and so the guys get on their bikes, they're getting scared. Well, I had an old Yamaha that wouldn't start, and me and a friend of mine named Ed was waiting for me, and I couldn't get my bike started. So this thing's coming like right 20 feet away. So I hopped on Ed's bike and we took off. And as I look back, the whole place where we get about a quarter mile up this dirt road that was sand docks, and the place that I just came from, where the party was, turns green, just bright green. We took off. Well, next morning, that night we're talking about let's go back, and of course we didn't go back. Just one of the odd things that we decided not to do. Probably pretty smart.
Probably a good thing you didn't.
Yeah. But the next morning I had to go get my bike. So I get on there with Ed came over, picked me up, and rode on down there. And get on. I took my keys and put them on my bike, and the bike's magnetized. The whole motorcycle was magnetized. My keys were stuck. My keys didn't stick to his tank, but they stuck. So we're trying there. My whole bike was magnetized. Everything was made out of metal. Was magnetized.
Wow.
So that's not the rest of this. The rest of the story is all the branches that are on the riverside facing out, all the branches facing in, okay? All the branches facing out were burnt. Absolutely burnt, toast. Everything on the inside was okay.
Wow, that's weird.
And when I say burnt, it wasn't like, ash, but they were dead.
Charred.
Yeah. So. Wow, that's really interesting. It's really is a good thing you left there. Just saying. I mean, if that did that to your bike.
Or maybe I didn't, and that's why I am who I am.
Maybe that's it.
And so again, I saw that glow in the dark frisbee thing. Another time when I was fishing with an older gentleman named Fred, and we go fishing on the Hudson sometimes, and I saw it drifting. We ran across a car accident in the middle of it wasn't country, but it was a 2-lane road that barely used, and this whole car was smashed. That's the whole front. There was no other car there. I mean, you had to hit a bulldozer to smash a car like that. And if you're going to hit another car like that, it'd be another car. There was only one car there. All right. And there's different things that happen. I'm trying to do this in sequence. Okay. I joined the Air Force, and I came back to Poughkeepsie to party with my high school friends. I got a basic training, Paul comes home type thing. And I used to work at a steakhouse, so we all had a big party. Well, or we're supposed to have a big party. Casey and I, my friend, would get into his car, and we stopped off at a fireman's beer tent thing, had a few beers. And driving back, Casey had been working on the 65 Mustang all his high school years. He finally got it running. And so I said, well, let's see what this thing can do. Well, he just downshifted and punched that car, and we're going as fast as it was bored out to a 302. And as fast as a 4-speed 302 Mustang go, we're doing it. And Casey's drunk, and there's a dirt road to the side where the party was. Oh, there's the road, and cuts the wheel. When he cuts the wheel, there's a farmer's embankment about 15 feet in the air, and a car from going 90 on whatever instantly stops, bedded in that side of the hill, embedded. I mean, the whole car wasn't that wide when we got out of it. Okay, Casey was okay. I was thrown in the back seat. I was fine. Casey was fine. Get out, we start laughing. Now, the thing about this was that my impression of religion and all that would be at that moment would have been a preacher and a big Bible. And all. Well, I turn around and here's this preacher standing there with this huge altar Bible, telling Casey to give me the keys. My son is what he says to Casey. We're out in the middle of the country, okay, wow. but everything was lit up. Okay, I said, Casey, there's a farmer's house. You can see his light up about a quarter mile away. So we walked up there, called up who we had to call up. We walked back. There was no preacher, and there was no street light.
Interesting.
I didn't see, but everything was lit up when we were there. So I don't know what that was, but there was no street light. So that's another weird thing that happened. So.
Wow.
Then there's the Air Force one. I'm in the Air Force. I guarded nuclear weapons, B-52s, weapons storage area, that kind of stuff. It's about 2 a.m. I had a hump post, which is walking around weapons storage area. Half of it's where they fix and maintain the weapons, and the other one's where they store it. I was on the A side. A guy named Bob Stockman pulls up and says he relieves you, so you get to sit down for a minute. So we're in a truck and we pull up in front of, looking down into the base. You can look the jets are over here that are on alert, and to the left are Tango 1, which is the control tower, and you can see all this stuff from our location. So I'm talking, and I left my gun on the outside of the truck. So I'm talking with Bob, and all of a sudden I see this green light going zzz. And I'm looking, it's way up there too. Man, you see that? He says, see what? I said, look at that green light. He said, yeah, it's zit and it's zit. And we're looking at this thing. So, oh man. It came down. It was about 50 feet in diameter, so I'm guessing, and it was probably about 300, 400 feet in the air. Okay, and I hop out of the truck, and Bob takes off, and I'm sitting there grabbing my gun, and I reported it. Charlie 2 Tango 2, be advised, we have a UFO over weapon storage area. And just then, the lights went on. The F-16s taxied on down the runway, turned around because they had to shoot down the runway, turned around, and they're in tandem, so they're doing side by side. And as soon as they started taking off tandem, that thing shot out of the sky and went over there and started messing with them. In front of them, behind them, just going along, and then shot off. Well, of course, the jets followed them.
Right.
About 6 o'clock in the morning, 2 jets land, and that's it. Well, now it's time for Paul to get debriefed. And everybody, you know, no matter who you were, you couldn't have missed it.
Right.
Well, all of a sudden, nobody said, I didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. You know, I didn't see anything wrong with saying what I saw, you know. So later on that day, they took my weapons card, my security police badge, and made me clean toilets for about 3 months.
Wow.
Because I wouldn't debrief. You did not see anything. I did. I reported it. You know, yeah. I was a stupid kid. I was 19. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they called me up one day and they say, "Would you like to get discharged?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Be off the base by 12." They were ready for him. He got rid of me. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
because you were telling the truth.
so I was telling the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we are. Here we are. Now I'm at MSP. I have not, since this point, have had any encounters per se of anything.
Right.
I'm at MSP, and that spot started bothering me. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, it's just nagging. Man, for years. So I just kind of like leaned up on the wall and trying to, and I didn't know I was popping it, but I popped it. Okay. And I was just like, so, and what I felt was about 6 inches, a minute or two later, something tapping my back. Well, what it was is that there was an object and 3 little wires. And I say wires, I don't know what they were. They were probably more vessel. I don't know what they were. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I reached behind and grabbed it and pulled it. And it was triangular in shape. It was opaque in blue, and different color wires came out of the 3. And I say wires came out of the 3 ends, and it was soft and hard. It had a soft covering and it was hard on the inside. So I set that back, set it right here, right there at the shelf, right, and set that down. I was like, and I'm trying to, because now I'm bleeding, right? So I'm trying to get this all up, and I go back to reach it up, and now it's rust. Now it's decayed. So I tried to pick it up, and it just vanished. It just disintegrated. Didn't even leave a stain.
Wow. So,
and ever since then, I've been left alone.
Wow. You know what? Here's my take on this. On like when you were a kid out in that field, I think you were abducted.
There was a time we discussed a little bit about this earlier, and I've had a little bit of time. There was a time that passed. I don't know if it was 5 minutes, but it seems like it was later on in the afternoon when, when I got home. More like, it should have been 1 o'clock. It's like 4 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? It just,
Right. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, because Tex, didn't this happen to you?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I missed several hours. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. I didn't wake up naked. Thank God I'd have scared all the wildlife off.
That was a problem. That was a problem there. Thank goodness it wasn't in a football stadium.
But you know what's crazy? You talked about when you woke up, all your clothes were there. Were they folded?
They were, and I want to say folded, but not really. I mean, they were like together, but not how you would fold pants. They were like, one on top of the other, but they were like mismatched. Like, you usually put the 2 shoes together with scissors. It wasn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
See, we've found that kind of stuff out in the woods.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I mean, that's spooky when you find
close it. Yeah.
Go back to the 411 thing that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this is the same area where I had my time loss incident. That's what I call it. But I've had it looked at. I've had it remote viewed. I've had, psychics tell me, very reliable psychics, like Danielle Diva, which.
Talk more into your mic.
Do what?
Okay, now I can hear you better.
Oh, okay.
You were muffled. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. But I've had the incident looked at by remote view by Jessica Jones, and then I had a psychic look into it, which was Danielle Diva, and both of them said I was abducted. And I don't know. I don't want to be that guy. I get that. I don't want to be that guy.
If I am, it doesn't matter.
Right. But I don't. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's just odd because all that time is just gone.
Right.
But we didn't, and I was with a guy when it happened, and we didn't suffer any ill things from it. I don't have any implants that I know of. Okay. It's a weird thing to kind of get your head around,
right.
And we've seen evidence like you were talking about out in the woods, and that's kind of creepy too.
Yeah, that's
really know what took place.
Well, yeah, I don't want to be opening up any doors here, but
right.
Yeah, I'm not. I just feel that once that thing came out of my bag, that was a tracking device. It had to be.
Yeah.
I mean, because after that, there wasn't anything really weird happen. I saw one UFO way out in the distance, and it could have been anything from whatever to whatever. I couldn't identify it, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been looking now, and like I said, I'm not one to look, but now that I haven't seen them for a while,
right,
just keep an eye out.
And that's the thing. See, I feel like, with your early encounter, maybe it's opened you up to a lot more, and that's why maybe you, have had like all those ghost encounters when you were at MSP.
Right. I think that was that was probably open to it for sure. And when the thing touched me in high school in my back, where I felt that, I still feel that to this day. Though I mean, I feel it right now. It never has gone away.
So how big was it?
Human size. I'm assuming, because does it touch me? It could have been shorter, but I did
not.
I'm
talking about the thing in your back.
Oh no, it was I would say 3/8 of an inch.
So about dime size?
Huh?
No, size, nickel size?
Yeah, it was like pea size, but flat and triangle.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay. And then how long were the wires?
Good 8 inches. Because I felt it down here, and I pulled it out there. Yeah.
Wow. What do you make of that, Tex?
I know we're calling them wires for lack of a better term.
I think that was the life force for it or whatever.
I would almost use the term tendrils.
Okay, right.
Now I think honestly, when it sounds like it was connected to some nerves or something, because you still feel it.
I still feel it. Yeah.
So that's very possible, and that's, I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to go with that.
Certainly had it. It was tapped into its life supply. That's for sure. Yep. Because it soon turned to rust, and I say rust. What? What do you call it? And then nothing. I mean, it didn't leave anything. So.
Right. Well, I mean, it was operational for that many years. It may have been it. Now, of course, this is 100% speculation, but it was in you for that many years, and it started bothering you really bad. Mm-hmm. That could have been its end of life cycle.
It could have been right.
Yeah,
and so because, like I said, I've rubbed my shoulder on many times in my life and never had. Yeah, and I didn't know I did anything either until all of a sudden, I felt that tapping because it swing in the air when I moved. So. Mm-hmm. and it did bleed. So,
Wow, I just couldn't imagine. But you hear all the time, I've heard lots of encounters of people having things in their body, or, get x-rayed and something comes up, or, that's very common. But that's the first time I heard something like that, though.
So,
yay.
how long did it take that to heal? I'm just curious.
I'm not quite sure, but it like I said, I still feel it, but it's a pock mark now. There's a round divot.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I've had people check it out and say, yeah, by the way, it's a round divot there. So.
Wow.
But it didn't take like an excessively long time to heal that you noted, or
not that I noticed. No.
Okay.
No, I did not. I did.
Okay.
Why text do people do they usually take a long time, or?
Well, no, I was just curious because I was wondering, did it possibly heal quicker than normal, or did it take longer? Just another data point.
I couldn't reach there. I never could. You can never touch that spot. Ever.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
So
I hear you. I've pulled the old bear trick many times, still do, up against the wall. That's for sure.
Got that right.
Yeah.
So when you started experiencing these after you got became a guest at the Crossbar Hotel, let's put it that way. I'm trying to figure out how to word this, because Krista was talking about earlier about, aside from the inmates and stuff, did the guards talk about this kind of stuff and everything? But were there,
when you go to MSP, you're going to have tour guides.
Mm-hmm.
One of the tour guides' name is Tommy Wells. He was a guard at MSP, or at J Trip, and he put all that to be the tour guide for the ghost tours. If you talk to Tommy Wells, he'll tell you the stories. Okay, I mean he was in the break rooms when the guards come in and say, hey, you never guess what, but I saw so and so.
Oh wow.
So Tommy Wells is the one who knows a lot of those stories.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at, because sometimes, this stuff, when you're experiencing this stuff, and there's literally nobody that you can really talk to, without,
when I was young, I kept it to myself.
Yeah.
When I was young,
that's what I'm saying. Nobody's really sharing all this kind of stuff. Unless there's two of you that, it's the same thing. But did y'all ever have conversations about, like in the death house? Did y'all have conversations after that?
Yeah. And the very interesting point is this: out of all the times out of all the times I was with people, a lot of people forgot it. Okay, mm-hmm. But I want all those people who were at that Sandox party. Only 3 or 4 people remembered it. Okay, but this is a couple years later. Okay,
right.
Casey, who got in the car wreck with me, didn't remember the father or the light being there until I brought it up 10 years later. He says, "Oh my God, that's right."
Wow.
Okay? How can you forget stuff like that? Okay?
Right.
I think people repress it.
Well, people can repress it, and then again, it is repressed elsewhere. Okay, we don't know the depth of things that happen in life. We are creatures crawling on a live thing called Earth. Okay, and we don't know what that live thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it has control, man. We think we're in control. Well, we're in control just as much as a cockroach is. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So there's so many things that we don't know. The Matrix, so to speak. Okay, you don't know. Why I say that is because I retained all these things, and a lot of people never retained them.
Yeah.
No.
That's
You know,
true.
here's one. I was married for 15 years, and we were down Monster Mountain, Mount Lebanon. Now there's a graveyard down there outside of Duncanville, and me and Jeff and George and George's wife and my wife were in a Vega. We went out there to go mess with see what the little, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Gonna have a few beers out in the graveyard is what we're going to do. And we left the girls in the car, and we went out to the graveyard, and it got about 15, 20 degrees colder that quick. And I looked over George and said, "Yeah, cold." Yeah. And we heard crack. Now, I don't know if it was a tombstone that crack, but I heard crack. And there was a tombstone that was split like this. Okay. Like that. That wasn't no, it will. That's where the sound came from. That's what I saw. So I turned back around and we head back to the cars, and the girls start screaming. And there's this, I guess they're called orbs, but it was above the car, and the girls were hearing scratches on the roof. Well, George's Vega was mint cherry. Okay. And we go hopping on in, we take off. We hop out, we get to George's house, and the roof is all scratched up on top. And the girls don't remember screaming.
Really?
The girls don't remember screaming. So
that's weird. Do you remember any missing time or anything there?
No, I don't remember. No, that was something. I didn't experience any missing time, even though, yeah, it could have happened, but I did not experience anything.
Mm-hmm.
That you know of.
That I know of.
Right.
You mentioned the goat man.
I don't really want to talk about it.
Understood.
There's things that have been said, and that was God, 40 some years ago, and I just best just to leave that lie. I do mention them because somebody else can go investigate it, but I'm not stupid. Okay, all right. But there's a lot of things around Dallas area that are just
yes, there is
peak paranormal. They're just absolutely top rung. Watch out,
Yeah.
So go ahead.
You mentioned, ghosts and UFOs and things like that. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if if you haven't had already or don't one day have even a cryptid encounter, because I think that they all
I might have. I've done a lot of camping, and I might have. I mean, the old.
I think if you're open to one, you're open to them all. And
I've had some weird things happen out in the woods, but I just go grab another tree, put it on fire. That stuff doesn't really. But I can see where that's possible. I've there's that I don't even want to talk about it, but yeah, I have seen weird things. So,
yeah. So you have then. Okay, I get it now why you don't want to talk about it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No. It's just I was warned not to, and I won't.
Yeah.
There you go.
Understand. There's several places like that. They say, don't talk about what's there and
especially if it comes from that individual.
Yeah.
So
totally understand that. I get it and we respect that. So for sure.
Yeah.
So have you always been a believer or was it until, you were having, I get the UFO things, but like with the ghost until you went to MSP or?
I don't think I had an opinion on it either way, really. I thought things were kind of cool. Well, Carlos Castaneda met his ally doing peyote, so that's about the only thing that I would, I wasn't really all that. Even though my house down in Texas lived on Wisteria Drive, 4739 Wisteria Drive. It's a little 1-bedroom, tiny little house. The whole attic can't be about 3 feet tall, and yet there was people walking in the ceiling. Now, how do you explain that? Okay, so
Yeah, you don't.
I mean, but it was what it was, and maybe I just see things as that's the way it is.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, it's crazy. Besides the one that you guys kind of figured out or kind of thought maybe who it was or whatever, was there any more of them there at MSP that you're like, oh, that's such and such, that went around that people thought was certain people?
If you rehear the same story coming from several people, you might not have a name, but the married couple, that was definitely the screamers, the hollers. That's definitely one that is I'm pretty sure it's probably even documented somewhere. Okay, so Fast Jack, that's kind of everybody would be everybody knows, not everybody, but a lot of people knows that a Mustang's a car. Well, at MSP, everybody knew that Fast Jack was around. So
right.
Yeah. So you mentioned the gas chamber, and I know people who have like went in there and sat in there and stuff, and they said that it's not really like where they get that feeling of it being haunted. Do you get that feeling? Like,
yeah, no, very much so. I did. Maybe it's because now that everybody's moved on, the inmates are gone. Maybe they went because some things happened at J Trip too. So, I mean, not necessarily with me, but with a lot of other people. So, maybe they moved on. Maybe they were riding the buses when we took the buses out of there. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. It's still pretty haunted, they say. So,
well, like I said, go down that baseball field. There's probably one of the least. The least checked out spot would be the parking lot on the lower yard. It looks like it used to be a quarry, and they quarried a whole section out. Okay, well that down there in the flats used to be bury people and stuff like that, and I don't know, but it was a baseball field when I was there.
Yeah. Out of the buildings, what buildings would you suggest to go to kind of hang out?
A Hall, definitely. Now I don't know what's left there.
Yeah, I don't know.
There was you had a big industrial complex that was kind of spooky. You had an old housing unit that was closed down years and years and years ago on the lower yard. They were supposed to be for the workers of the industry, and that place there probably closed down in the 70s, 80s. I don't know. But it had no railings, and it was just because of its presence alone, it was spooky.
Really?
Yeah, wow. But I don't know if that it would take a ton of dynamite because they tried to tear it down, it wouldn't tear down. There's concrete reinforced steel with concrete reinforced steel steel. Okay, it just wouldn't come down. They had us maintenance guys try to cut it down. Yeah, couldn't budge it. So that would be one, but A Hall 4 House, definitely. That's the one with the go to cell 23, say hi to anybody's left. That's my cell. All says hi.
Cell 23. That's funny. Okay, so earlier today I was reading about the riots in 1954 that happened there and why they call it like the bloodiest.
How come they didn't write the ones about the ones that happened in the 1990s? Why didn't they write about them? I mean, the one in the 50s went and a lot of people were killed and shot and all that. And
well, there was only 4 that actually were killed, but there were over 60 that were injured.
Well, look, you can look at the film because there's a lot of films of the era. I don't know if you have looked at them yet or not. There was a bootleg copy that Dave Dormeyer at the time had. He was the superintendent at the time. Well, somebody somewhere somehow got a copy of it and put it on people's computers. Well, at the end of it all, everybody had it on a computer. Okay, it was a lot of the riot films, a lot of the activities at the time. That's how I found out that those guys in the 30 wore the stripes real thick.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I figured out that little aspect of the one I walked by my cell there. So, but I didn't mean to change the topic. I'm just
no, you're good. You're good. I was just curious about that. Now you mentioned other riots that,
There was some racial, there was some anti.
Well, I guess my point being, I want to know, like, were people like unalived in those riots where it's adding more to the haunting is what I'm at.
Okay, well, back in the 50s, of course, that would have added spiritual fuel to the fire, so to speak. Okay, right. That would have if it upsets the living, I'm sure it upsets the dead. Mm-hmm. If they are dead.
Sure.
I don't know how to explain that, but
sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of action. They burned down a big housing unit, and they say 4 died, and they're going to keep on saying 4 died. Okay,
right.
But more than that did.
I was there 40 years later. I heard a lot more. Okay,
so I bet you did.
So,
So, did you? How many rides did you make it through?
These are, and I want to say riots. They're an inch shy of a riot.
Right.
There was fights and wars and knives and blood and stuff. Groups of people attacking groups of people. So yeah, that happened on a regular. They'd sometimes let it happen.
Mm-hmm. What I find interesting though, like, I'm all about, like, I read all about cover-ups and stuff. So I've tried Googling, like, how many people actually were unalived at MSP. And all they keep talking about is the 1954, the 4, and then the ones that were put on the gas chamber, through the gas chamber. Yeah, that doesn't say, like as you stated, there were other riots that, people were unalived, so.
There was a book that was put out back in 1985, somewhere, MSP, the true story, and all that stuff. And that's where they said there was only 7 inmates that were on premises unclaimed through all those years.
Right.
Okay, that's where I got that information from, was from their own book that they made. Somewhere in Time, I think it's called. Someplace in Time, somewhere in time. It's something like that. If you look it up, I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Okay. I'm telling you, during the Civil War, 7 people a minute died in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The way they were treated, 40 deep. There's no running water. You got a pot and no food. I mean, come on.
That's what I'm saying. So, like our big thing, we always, Brandy and I, we go to the Ray County Museum all the time, and there's over 200 documented deaths there. Well, when you look up, how many documented deaths are at MSP, you can't find it.
Yeah, because they can't count that high.
Yeah.
But I'm not, maybe I'm laying myself out here a little bit thick that I shouldn't be doing. But no. I mean, I'm telling the truth.
We totally believe you. That's what, this channel here, like, we totally, I mean, and Tex will tell you, his channel, BMRs, like, people can come here and feel safe and tell their encounters because we don't judge at all.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I witnessed things myself that, like, people wouldn't believe, on the paranormal side of things. And, right. So I get it. Right. And we do believe you. Absolutely. I just think that, I mean, with all the, like, sadness and the death that was there, were inmates or even guards or anything, were any of them getting, like, touched or scratched or anything by entities?
Yeah, there was. Jose, I mean, I was friends with Jose, and he'd get scratched and stuff. I think that incident with Sarge, his cellie, when he got up, I think he got injured sometime during that too, if my memory is correct. I'm pretty sure that there are things where people get touched, and down in the shower. It's just a story that one of the guys told me that I'm just remembering that he was pushed. So I can't remember where I heard that story from, except for it might have been one of the 100 when I was interviewing people.
Yeah.
It might have been through one of those. But
Yeah.
yeah, he was pushed, and so I went down. I remember going in the shower. It's like, don't push me, please.
Right.
I don't want to feel nobody touch me in the shower. I'm just
No. That's a fact. but yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
it's an environment that's fueled for things that can happen.
well, that's what I'm saying. That's my point. Like, because it's definitely, I'm not saying it's demonic or anything there, because I don't know what's there. I haven't been there.
No, Potosi's demonic. Potosi, that's demonic.
Is it?
Yeah, that's got an evil spirit over that place. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as MSP, I mean, I feel like, there's some nasty entities there. I don't think that they're all nice and, Casper type ghosts. That's why I was asking about anything, people getting hurt or anything like that there, because, nasty ghosts will do that. They don't have to be demonic to hurt you.
Right. I'm sure. I haven't, being pushed in the shower isn't necessarily, maybe he deserved to get pushed. I mean, I don't know.
right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. And sometimes I even think, because Paranormal Paul is in our chat and he was scratched at the Ray County Museum. However, I don't necessarily think that it was a negative type thing. It could have been even a ghost just trying to get his attention.
That's true. Right.
So I don't necessarily jump and say, oh, it's a negative entity because you got scratched. I don't believe that. I just, just kind of curious about different things. Me, myself, it's the negative entities that was at the Ray County Museum have now been removed because I was even choked there. Had some, kind of crazy stuff happen. But yeah, that's so I was just kind of curious. Anything like that at MSP?
Well, I had a really weird thing happen. Just prior to being falsely accused and thrown into jail.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to buy a house all my life, and I moved down here to Missouri with my wife and kids. And I just finally, I found a little A-frame.
Mm-hmm.
And a little $15,000 A-frame. I was like, yay, So I'm sitting on the back porch, and I hurt my back at work, and I'm kind of recovering from surgery and whatnot. But I got a cold beer in my hand, and the little balcony in the back of the house was looking down to a little ravine, and and I had that beer in my hand, and I slammed it on the railing, and I had this proud moment. And look what I did! I finally made it. Nobody can take this away from me. And that night I had a dream, and I was lying next to my wife, and I shot straight up and out of breath. And she said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I was in prison." And she says, "Yeah, I was in prison. There was 4 stories tall, and people were hollering, and oh, it's crazy." And she, "Oh, honey, you'll never go to prison." I didn't do anything to go to prison. Never have. I've been pretty, I ride Harleys, but that don't throw me in prison because of that. Okay. Anyways, 2 weeks later, I'm in county jail. 2 years later, they finally find me guilty. 28 months later.
Wow. They
throw me into I go to Fulton. Then I get thrown into MSP. I go walking in, and they send me to A Hall. I come walking in, and was my dream. That was that dream.
Yeah, it was a premonition.
Film a full circle of that. I mean, the same people, the same noises, the same everything. I mean, there was one guy pulling a bunk out of one of the rooms, is bringing it outside in my dream, and there's a guy pulling a bunk out, bringing it outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah, now, I can't jump time with that one. I mean,
that was a premonition. People say that does happen. They dream about the future. Yeah. And maybe you have some sort of spiritual gifts too, and that you don't know about.
Yeah, I'm also been known as Brother Paul for a few years. So yeah, I know of the spiritual gifts. I know very well where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you talk about when you were running the chapel, right? Mm-hmm. because I know there's people that are incarcerated that you're not going to see them in the chapel. You were talking about other religions that you know,
or if you do,
yeah. Did you ever have any dealings with what you would call straight up evil people?
sure, yeah. Sure. I mean, from even the guards, but yeah.
It's on both sides. There's no doubt about that.
I had one guard try to set me up. I changed the guitar strings out, right? I gave him the 6 guitar string tails when you cut. Well, here you go. He went home on Friday, came back on Sunday, and he had them in his top pocket. And so what he wrote in his report, I found this, and Paul, the only one can have it is Paul. I found it in his 4:00 in the morning report, he found him on stage. In his 6:00 in the morning report, he found him in the bathroom in a toilet paper roll. He said he was trying to throw me in a hole. I gave them to him 2 days earlier. Fortunately, they have cameras.
Wow.
And fortunately, I had the chaplain at the time had enough moral courage to actually look at the camera and say, "Yeah, see, he's telling the truth." So that guy was evil straight across the board. Anytime he wanted to just cause anybody grief, especially the ones who were doing well.
Yeah. Do you think that there were people in there, because you hear about there's some famous haunting cases and for instance, the Amityville, they say that he was possessed when he killed his family. Do you feel like there might have been people in there that were possessed?
Oh, I know there were, but are they now? I don't think so. I think the possession did its job and ruined their future, ruined their families, and he did his thing. He's merrily marching down the road somewhere else.
Right.
They are whatever. As far as individuals, it's possible, but I have much more faith and strength to even confront that.
I get it.
So I have no problem with those people, but I have problems with the spirits.
Right. Absolutely. Wow. This has been really, really interesting. You're a very interesting guy for sure. You've had a lot of encounters and experiences, and I just couldn't imagine, living at MSP and having all those encounters, it's just crazy.
Well, MSP was a growing experience. That's for sure. Yeah. I sure as heck would not be the guy I am now if I didn't go through all 28 years of that.
Yeah.
Okay? But integrity grows just like anything else, and that's the one thing I have. And prison guys, old timers who've been down. My word's my bond, and that's exactly what they say. Now they say it now there, and they don't mean it. They don't know what they're saying. Okay, but my word's my bond.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing about it is, going through what you did can affect a person one or two ways.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you came out on the other side of it. The man you are.
Yeah. Right? I came out of this other side on fire. I wasn't supposed to be out, brother. I was inside a cave. There was no light at no end and no tunnel. Okay?
Yeah, I understand.
And just by being ready, and my brother was my mom had died, and my brother said, "Paul, you're going to have to tell him you did, or you're going to die in there." And I'm walking to parole. I said, "I've been to parole 5 times in 5 years, 4 times, 5 years back. This is my 5th time. I go there." And I said, and they're sitting there, and their folders are closed. And something gave me the strength. And she said, "Oh, okay, Mr. You're now." You still claiming your innocence, and the folders are closed, and nobody was kicking back, And I said, "Well, no, I like to change my story. Now all the things matter."
Yeah.
Okay. I saved one of the female guards. I saved her from being raped and murdered in the library. I had stopped that. Me. You don't do that in prison, but you have integrity. You do that.
Right.
Okay. And I got a letter from the warden and all that stuff. I didn't do it for that reason. I didn't do it for parole. I didn't do it for anything. It was just the right thing to do. Okay?
Right.
Absolutely.
And that all of a sudden that mattered. I did 10 years of what's called ITC, which is a military type volunteer, because if that door ever was going to crack, I was going to be the one to walk through it, because that was the only way. And, you know, with life skill lessons and anger management and years and years and 10 years of that stuff, marching around. And the door cracked open. And when I said I did it, then all of a sudden all that mattered. That's what got me out.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah. It was a gift. And I treated it as such.
Yeah.
I've been out 3.5 years now, and I've done more in 3.5 years than most people do in 40 years.
Yeah.
Got my Harley. Yeah. I just bought my house. You know, I'm on a very fixed income. I don't work, and yet been blessed by being able to do these things.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome. And, you know, I really, really do appreciate you coming on here and being honest and open about everything that you've been through. Cause you know, a lot of people in your situation wouldn't have, and I appreciate that for sure.
Well, I appreciate all that you're inviting. I appreciate your shows, and I think I'm going to get more involved to some degree. I really should, because you know I've got a lot to offer. So.
Yep, you absolutely do. You absolutely do.
A lot of insight, brother. A lot of insight.
Yep. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Tune in tomorrow. We have Paranormal Paul and myself at 7. Then we have Donny Cho at 8:30 Central, and then BMR and the rest of us. And Tex, you going to be on tomorrow night with BMRs?
What is tomorrow? Saturday?
Saturday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. I couldn't agree more. Great guest. I should be, but I've got to do Brent's show tomorrow too.
That's right. Okay. All right. Well, good deal. Good deal. So we got a bunch of shows for you guys tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow night, and appreciate each and every one of you. Real quick, Werewolf, thank you for becoming a new member. Maggie M10 and Amy Creel. We appreciate you guys for that. And you got anything else, Tex?
Well, y'all go over Sunday. I co-host on
Southern Belle.
Southern Belle Bigfoot. So yeah, that's at 7 p.m. So y'all come over and see us over there too.
Yep, for sure.
Paul, I want to say thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Tex.
Not everybody would, like Krista was saying, not everybody would be as open with your story and and share like you have. And I really appreciate that. And
appreciate you having me on. I hope it helps somebody. Just because things happen to you, man. You don't have to hide. You just accept it and do what you can with it.
Yep.
There's always going to be an answer. You just got to find it.
That's it.
Find your key, man. I found mine.
Yep.
That's it.
It's a good deal. All right. Well, we will see everybody tomorrow night in the shows, and you all have a great night, and hasta la vista.
This is the future. Evolution.
The Crossing Realms Conference launches September 19th and 20th and will dock in Richmond, Missouri. This is already being called the event of the year, folks. With an unprecedented list of speakers and special guests, 2 days of cryptids, UFOs, and paranormal presentations, along with a celebrity-filled ghost hunt, meet and greet, gallery reading, vendors, and a film screening. This promises to be both educational and fun. Go to Eventbrite.com to secure your tickets and vendor slots before they are all abducted. They're going fast.